Good morning. Just a few words. I'm Michelangelo D'Urso. I'm speaking today on behalf of Deloitte. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, we are focused on providing professional services in many service areas, service fields, which we call functions, in about 150 countries around the world. We have a local office, of course, in Turkey. And if you are interested in contacting Deloitte afterwards, you can, of course, take contact with our local office, which will, of course, be more than happy to establish a sort of dialogue along the lines of what you are interested in. So today, I am Michelangelo D'Urso. I am working in the EMEA team for analytics, big data, and also in-memory platforms specifically. So this is a subject which is very, very dear to me. And so I would like to go forward. Okay. So the first question is, what is big data? I think we have heard a lot about this topic. There have been a lot of discussions. So in today's brief presentation, I would like to speak about a few things. I would like to avoid a lot of taxonomy. I would like to avoid a lot of product presentations. I would like to give you a view which could be, let's say, a view of great value to a client who would like to adopt this. So what is big data? Is it a frightening monster? In some ways, yes, it is. Why is that? Well, it's not very well classified. We are not familiar with it. We don't know it very, very well. It's something that has come on recently. There are a lot of products, services, vendors, which approach us with big data products, big data platforms, big data strategies. So, but still, it's taxonomized, it's discussed about, but it still has a fuzzy definition, especially if we look at it from the perspective of the people who own the big data, the companies, the corporation, people and organizations which are our potential customers, speaking from a professional services organization perspective, of course. So, as I was saying, big data, there is big noise. We are overwhelmed with press announcements, product announcements, big data 1.0, big data 2.0. And that is probably the frightening aspect of this. So the IT vendors, the professional services organizations, the internet giants, the telcos, everyone is talking about big data. So what's the problem? The problem is we need to link big data to our business problem, to the value it brings to running our business. That is the key aspect of big data, and this is probably the most important aspect of the discussion I would like to do today. But first of all, let's look at the technology landscape around big data. As you can see, there are many, many ingredients. This is one of the topics which encompasses the most remarkable amount of technology. Every single thing seems to fit in, going from programming languages to hardware platforms to hardware infrastructure like virtualization. So I think it is inevitable that anyone who speaks of big data touches a little bit of all these things. So it is a complex technology landscape. It is something that must be kept in mind, of course, whenever we try to build and approach a big data problem and build a big data solution. It's very, very complex. In addition to this, it is highly evolving. Big data is not a mature subject. Big data technologies are stable in some cases, of course, but they are not mature products. They are still quite early in the product life cycle development. So what we're trying to say here, and we're trying to stress the concept that it's a complex technology landscape. And there are a few questions, of course, a few challenges. For example, how do customers choose one technology compared to the other? Which technology will emerge? Which technologies will decline? Who will survive in this landscape? How can we learn from the past experiences? Very difficult. There is not so much history in the adoption of big data architectures and solutions. So we have to try and look very hard at what has been done in similar fields, what has been done when approaching one piece of the problem and has been successful. We have to try to learn from that. It's not very easy to just look into the past and find some easy solutions and conclusions. Most of all, can you afford to be an early adopter? Do you have the right business driver? Are you geared for it? Are you willing to take this into account? Can you evaluate the risk? Very important. It's much more than just selling a platform, selling a commodity software or a commodity hardware. It's a complex problem. So, question is, complex technology landscape, okay. But do we have enough technology today to tackle big data problems? Some cases yes, some cases no. It's not an easy answer. I'll try to give a wise suggestion later on about this, but let's just look at a few things. We have some technologies that are available on the market, and even before we've had a very, very good presentation, which I appreciated, about good technologies that are available today on the marketplace. But still, there are going to be more to come, and there are going to be new things. So we do have stable technologies which are out in the market. I would not like to mention very specifically all the technologies that are out there, but everyone has heard of software platforms. Everyone has heard of big data-oriented appliances and combined hardware-software platforms. So we all know. But we also are aware of the fact that there are some challenges. For example, Hadoop clusters. Very good, but when they are heterogeneous and they're not all the same hardware, then the performance is really dipping. So that's a challenge. So again, we have good news, we have bad news. So clients have to be aware of the fact that they ought to approach this with caution and get knowledgeable about it before they make decisions. So there is another question about big data, which is benchmarking the big data. And that is a point which is really quite at an early stage. So that will still take a little bit of time before we have some kind of experience and something really valid to be able to rely on. This is the real question. Ask yourselves, where is the value? Okay? For example, up to a few years ago, analyzing data with a number of patterns, which was quite limited, did not really emerge all the value that was inside the data. Today, people are now understanding that they need to use deeper analysis patterns in order to dig out the value from the data. Of course, real-time decision-making is very important. It's needed. So we need to speed up the value. The value inside the data is is the real aim of the game. We want to find what is the business value of the data. And in many cases, the business value of the data is linked to time. So we need to bring it out in time to make and take a good advantage of it. Sometimes data contains weak signals. So what do? We need to look selectively inside the data for the weak signals which give us business value. We need to clean off the noise. It's like what we do when we hear a weak radio. We tend to filter out the static, if possible, and concentrate on the key words that are coming through that weak signal. And that's something very, very important. Then again, businesses today are discovering that there are ways to monetize big data, to turn the information into a real business opportunity. This is one of the most remarkable things. Just think of the value of the information that some businesses have, telcos, retailers, about their customers' usage patterns, about their habits. There is a tremendous amount of data in there. For example, if we look at shaping customer behavior down there in the middle on the bottom, what do we mean by that? I'm an Amazon customer. It's remarkable how they make intelligent suggestions to me based on my navigation strategies within their online stores. That is the type of business value that organizations must look for in order to achieve real value out of big data. Of course, there are a lot of challenges. For example, did you ever think of an ecosystem? Ecosystem means, of course, different organizations collaborating. So it's collaboration. Some people have one view, some people have another view. Some have a missing piece that others do not have. So bringing together in an intelligent way, in a very focused manner, looking for the value is what we mean by ecosystem view of data. And of course, this is not a mature subject. It's more like a front. So what is the answer? Where is the value in the right business context? So it takes a lot of focus and it takes a lot of guidance. And let's say this is one of the point of views that we would like to share with our customers above all. Linking the available opportunities which are tremendous, of course, in this field, to the business value, to the right business drivers. That is one way to make the bogeyman less a monster. Because in this way, you focus on what your ultimate goal can be. And all of a sudden, you see less shadows, more light, and you have a precise direction that you want to follow. And then you go again and you approach all the problems that you have, the technologies, the quality of the data. There's tons of things, and there will be a lot of discussions about all that. So I don't want to go on, and repeat to you all the various aspects of the big data problem. And I'll just make a few comments on this chart. Of course, we all know the big data is a combination of tremendous volumes, the need for high-speed processing, and of course the fact that there is a variety of information which does not come, of course, from the same sources, so they have all different characteristics. It's heterogeneous, just to make it. So that is the increasing difficulty around big data. And what happens when you have this kind of scenario? Well, basically on the right you see that the quality of your data is decreasing. So you have a data quality problem. You have, of course, performance problem, query response problem. And of course, you also have a series of results that are very difficult for you to interpret and to take the value out of. So this is the problem. And as we move from department data, which is usually very, very low in volume, velocity, and variety, very high in data quality, response times, and result quality, when we move over and try to get the most marginal value out of this, then we see that everything is shifting. Higher volume, higher velocity, lower quality response. So that is where we have to find out how to solve the problem, and that is the real big data problem. Just a few other remarks. We have spoke about the missing data problem. In some occasions, in many occasions, we have a great volume of data, and when we try to make a value out of this volume of data, we find out that we are missing a small piece. Not because we aren't able to see it, just because we aren't able to have it. We do not have it. So that's the ecosystem concept I was speaking about before. And that means I have to go out and find it. So what is the common approach today to big data? Big data is one of those topics where we have seen, and the analysts have seen, are approached differently. Organizations are now driving their big data projects out of their business requirements, not like traditional data warehouse, where the problem was upside down. We have data, we push some analytics out of this data, and we give you the results. Now it's the business going down to the IT and saying, I want something different, this is what I need. And then usually it is discovered that it is a big data problem. So that is an important inversion. So in this case, you find out that you have a missing data problem. It's because it's not the IT that's coming out to you and say, look, you have this data, I can provide this analytics for you, and you have this segmentation, you have this nice report, and you have this nice view, and then you can tweak it a bit, and perhaps you come back and you ask me for something slightly different, but you usually use the available information as a benchmark, as a sort of menu of services that you can pick on. Today it's different. You basically approach it from the top down. I need this kind of information to make a decision. Let's see what we have, and then you discover that you have a missing data problem. You discover that you need to bring together massive volumes of data in order to analyze and to come up with something which has some valuable business content. So this is the real change, which also gives you a lot of collaboration and privacy issues, of course. It also asks and demands different visualization techniques, not just tabular reports, but something which gives you a visual sensation of what is going on. And I will show you a few examples on how that can be done. In addition, there is another aspect to this technology problem: rapid prototyping and iterative design. We want, business users want, something that can be easy by trial and error, by continuous prototyping, to shape and to change in time, not something which has to be according to a classic paradigm, specified, developed, tested, and when you discover that you need to change, you go through the whole different cycle once again. So we also need a new paradigm in terms of how we develop these systems and how we maintain and evolve these systems. Just a few considerations. So we are developing a big data system. What criteria do we use in order to understand whether it is effective or is it not? Just how accurate it is and how fast it is? No, not really. There's so many different things that you must consider around this wheel. There are a few, and I've already discussed a few of those. Quality of the data, of course, integration issues, privacy issues. As you dig into everyone's data and it looks like a panacea. I have all this data and now I look for the relevant information, but I must be careful that I am not infringing any privacy issues. I'm not creating any privacy issues. Timing issues, of course. Am I doing things quickly enough? Is it taking me a long time to reshape a view in order to give different insight? Is the processing time, is the transfer time, is the collection time quick enough so that I can get the most value out of this tremendous volume of data? And of course, return on investment. I don't think clients are inclined to making investment just because they like the hype and they are fascinated by the big data stuff. So we also need, this is a large challenge for all the providers. We also need to provide something which is, of course, feasible in terms of cost and return on investment. So something a bit less fascinating and a bit more practical. What is a typical roadmap to a big data problem? Well, this is basically our approach to this type of problem. This is the journey that we usually suggest to clients, to customers. And it is very schematic and I think it's very straightforward. So you need to identify, first point, your strategic priorities and ask some very crunchy questions. What it is really about is finding out what is of value for your business, what can give you a return, what can give you a competitive advantage. The next step is typically to assess your current capabilities. You need to understand what your current landscape is, what your current technical abilities are, what new technologies can you adapt and must you adapt, or could you adopt in order to address and dig out the value from this. And then, of course, you need to go practical. Identify and define some use cases. Something which is based on the assessments and the things you have done in step number 2, that can identify the scenario for a specific solution. Step number 4, very simple. You implement pilot and you do a prototype. And then you refine it in times until you are able to select the right ones and bring them into production. The strategic ones, the ones which give you value. Just a few elements of our approach. So, first point, link the data to the enterprise value. That is very important. Second point, you need to establish agile data governance. You need to have governance, and in a fast-changing environment, in a fast-changing solution, this has to be agile. So you need to be able to approach this problem. Third point, you must tailor the user experience for big data. And we'll have a small example of that. Fourth point, another suggestion, is to be able to manage hybrid data architectures. because typically this is what your solution will lead you to manage. So this is important. Few examples of user XPs. Now these look like funny graphs, okay? But actually, with the appropriate visualization technology, the data comes to life and delivers a more evident message. Of course, from this chart, you cannot understand exactly what is going on, but this is a stream flow in the bottom here, and it carries a lot more information than a tabular view of numbers, of course, and it is immediate information. So I guess by looking at it, you are questioning, you're asking yourselves the question, what does the area mean? What does the color mean? What does the height on the y-axis mean? And once you understand these three parameters, then you are able to see in every single label which film has made the most money, which was the quickest to go to the box office and drive a lot of revenues. And the other is an example of pharmaceutical data where every single point is a doctor and the connections between the doctors, and then of course the bubbles are the magnitude of the specific parameter that we are charting in that minute. So it shows how a network of entities which are connected relate to a certain data set in quality and in quantity, and very quickly. You imagine a chart of numbers would not be clearly readable in the same manner. So before I say goodbye, just a few takeaways. We believe that virtually any industry sector will be transformed by analytics and data, and especially big data. So the challenge will be, of course, to meet the hard and soft requirements that are here. The ultimate goal is to have better performing decision support tools to be able to make better decisions. So this is also a really important turning point. This is something that will change the way organizations run their businesses, the opportunities they are able to capture. So this is something that is worth really your thoughts, is worth your time, and is worth your consideration. Thank you very much.